In 208 AD, during the reign of Emperor Shan, China was in turmoil. The young emperor, still too inexperienced to rule, was under the control of Prime Minister Cao Cao, a hero in his own right for saving Xi'an from a deadly power struggle over the throne. But as Xi'an's reign weakened, Cao Cao's ambitions grew. One day in a tense meeting, Cao Cao demanded permission to launch a war against the southern kingdoms of Liu Bei and Sun Quan, whose growing influence threatened the survival of the Han Dynasty. Xi'an, unwilling to resort to violence, hesitated. Yet Cao Cao's relentless pressure, reminding him of all he had done for the empire, wore down the young emperor. Reluctantly, Xi'an gave in, naming Cao Cao as the general and sending 500,000 troops to march south. But not everyone agreed. Minister Kong Rong, deeply loyal to the Han Dynasty, spoke out against the plan. After all, Liu Bei was Xi'an's own uncle, and Sun Quan had been a steadfast ally of the Han for generations. With fierce conviction, Kong accused Cao Cao of amassing too much power, intending to eventually overthrow the very dynasty he was sworn to protect. Cao Cao, seething with anger, demanded that Xi'an punish Kong Rong for his insolence. In a moment of brutal decisiveness, the emperor ordered Kong Rong's execution, sealing his fate that very day. Several days later, Cao Cao's forces launched a brutal attack on Changdong, forcing Liu Bei and his army to defend the city with everything they had. As the siege tightened, General Zilong worked tirelessly to help evacuate the civilians to safer areas. During the chaos, a soldier urgently reported that Liu Bei's wife and child were still trapped inside the city. Without a second thought, Zilong rushed back to save them. Meanwhile, Liu Bei's trusted advisor, Zhuge Liang, informed General Zhang Fei that they had to hold off the enemy at all costs. The remaining civilians still needed to be evacuated, but the enemy forces were overwhelming. Zhang Fei requested 1,000 more soldiers to hold the line, but Zhuge Liang's request for reinforcements was met with refusal. Liu Bei, torn between saving the civilians and reinforcing his troops, chose to protect the people from the siege. Inside the city, Cao Cao's troops targeted Liu Bei's wife and infant son. Just in time, Zilong arrived to rescue them. Liu Bei's wife handed her baby to him, but as Zilong prepared to carry them to safety, the enemy launched another assault. Zilong fought fiercely, holding the baby in one arm, but Liu Bei's wife, fearing she would be a burden, made the heart-wrenching decision to throw herself into a well. After defeating the enemy soldiers, Zilong took the baby and quickly joined the growing group of refugees, the weight of the tragic loss heavy on his heart. On the battlefield, Zhang Fei barked orders, directing his troops to form a reflective, light formation, a strategy designed to hold off the enemy. As Cao Cao's forces closed in, Liu Bei's men fought valiantly, cutting down several enemies, but the overwhelming numbers kept flooding in. Just as the situation began to spiral, Zhuge Liang arrived, but not with the 1,000 soldiers he had requested. Instead, he brought General Guan Yu ready for battle. Without hesitation, Guan Yu charged forward, his blade cutting through enemies with brutal efficiency. Zilong, still holding the baby, joined the fray, his every move calculated and fierce. From a distance, Cao Cao watched, impressed by the tenacity of Liu Bei's soldiers, their determination unwavering even against impossible odds. But the battle raged on, with the enemy relentlessly pushing forward. Zhuge Liang made the call for a retreat. Yet Guan Yu, ever the warrior, refused to back down. He ordered his men to fall back while he stayed behind to hold off the advancing forces alone. Surrounded by Cao Cao's troops, Guan Yu fought with unmatched ferocity. Just as the enemy closed in, Cao Cao arrived on the scene. But to the confusion of his soldiers, he ordered them not to kill Guan Yu. Instead, Cao Cao watched in admiration as Guan Yu fought on, eventually withdrawing from the battle. As his soldiers questioned his decision, Cao Cao revealed his reasoning. He was not only impressed by the strength and courage of Liu Bei's warriors, but also saw an opportunity. Once the south was under his control, he believed all of Liu Bei's men would eventually bow to him. After narrowly escaping the relentless siege, Liu Bei and his followers arrived at the city of Xiaku, exhausted but determined. They immediately set to work tending to their wounded soldiers, trying to regain their strength. Once the immediate chaos settled, Liu Bei gathered his closest allies, General Zhang Fei, General Zilong, General Guan Yu, and his trusted advisor, Zhuge Liang, for a crucial meeting. In a moment of quiet resolve, Liu Bei declared that he would not surrender. He refused to let Cao Cao seize control of the land, vowing to continue the fight. Zhuge Liang, ever the strategist, spoke up with a plan. He proposed traveling to the kingdom of Dongwu to seek an alliance with King Sun Quan. Though some were doubtful that Sun Quan would lend his support, Zhuge Liang was confident that a united front would be the key to defeating Cao Cao's overwhelming forces. Meanwhile, Cao Cao was growing stronger by the day. He had just received an additional 300,000 troops and 2,000 warships from General Kai, who had defected to his side. At first, Cao Cao's subordinates questioned General Kai's true loyalties, as he had long-standing ties to Dongwu. But General Kai reassured them that his connection to Dongwu was purely commercial. To prove his commitment, he presented a detailed map of the Dongwu region, an invaluable tool for Cao Cao's plan to conquer the kingdom and tighten his grip on the south. Cao Cao, now fully trusting General Kai, welcomed his new ally with open arms. He remarked that he wasn't worried if Liu Bei formed an alliance with Sun Quan of Dongwu. In fact, he hoped it would happen. Such an alliance would give him the perfect excuse to destroy the Dongwu kingdom and solidify his power in the south. Meanwhile, Zhuge Liang arrived at the Dongwu palace, accompanied by his advisor Lu Su, to meet with the king. Sun Quan, ever the cautious leader, asked why Liu Bei and his forces had retreated in the face of Cao Cao's overwhelming army. Zhuge Liang calmly explained that Liu Bei had prioritized the safety of the people, choosing to retreat rather than sacrifice the city's civilians in a hopeless battle. Zhuge Liang then laid out Cao Cao's true intentions. His ultimate goal was to conquer Dongwu, not just defeat Liu Bei. With the stakes clear, Zhuge Liang proposed a powerful alliance between Sun Quan and Liu Bei, a united front to defeat Cao Cao and protect the southern kingdoms from his relentless ambition. Hearing this, the ministers in Sun Quan's court were filled with fear and uncertainty, opposing the idea of war with Cao Cao. Sun Quan, sensing their hesitation, turned to Zhuge Liang and asked why Liu Bei was so determined to continue fighting. Without missing a beat, Zhuge Liang responded that if Cao Cao succeeded in conquering the southern territories, he would undoubtedly use his newfound power to overthrow the Han Dynasty. Liu Bei could never allow that to happen. He and his followers would rather die than bow to Cao Cao's rule. Zhuge Liang's words carried weight as he continued, explaining that if Liu Bei and Sun Quan formed an alliance, they would become an unstoppable force. Cao Cao's vast army, though intimidating, was made up mostly of former enemies who had surrendered, troops without loyalty or true conviction. Furthermore, Cao Cao's unfamiliarity with the southern geography would work to their advantage. A hasty attack by him could easily backfire. The room was divided. Some ministers were eager to fight, while others leaned towards surrendering to Cao Cao. Sun Quan, still unsure, asked for more time to think. Sensing Sun Quan's hesitation, Zhuge Liang devised another plan. He decided to turn to Zhou Yu, the military commander of Dongwu, whom Sun Quan trusted like a brother. Zhuge Liang traveled to Zhou Yu's headquarters at Chibi Cliff, where the general was training his troops, determined to win him over to the cause. When Zhuge Liang arrived at Chibi Cliff, the sound of a flute drifted through the air, weaving its melody between the disciplined training of the soldiers. Zhou Yu, captivated by the music, called for General Gan to halt the drills and listen to the tune. As the soldiers paused, Zhou Yu approached the young boy playing the flute and adjusted the instrument, refining its pitch to enhance the beautiful sound. But the peaceful moment was soon interrupted. The boy's grandfather approached, his face troubled. He reported that his ox had been stolen from the field, and witnesses claimed one of the soldiers was the thief. Zhou Yu, his mood shifting from calm to focused, immediately stopped the training. He ordered a search for the thief among his men. Standing before the soldiers, Zhou Yu explained the situation and revealed the gravity of the crime. Stealing an ox, especially from an elderly man, was punishable by death. Lu Su, ever the voice of reason, reinforced the law. Yet Zhou Yu, despite the urgency of the matter, chose a different approach. He could have easily identified the thief by examining the muddy footprints left behind, but instead he ordered all the soldiers to run through the mud, deliberately dirtying their feet. His intention was clear. He wanted to offer the thief a chance to come forward, avoiding the harsh punishment if possible. Soon, General Gan returned the ox to the elderly man, bowing deeply in apology for the theft. Touched by the kindness of Zhou Yu and his soldiers, the old man also knelt, expressing his gratitude. In a surprising show of unity, every soldier present followed suit, kneeling to offer their sincere apologies to the old man. Just as Zhou Yu and his men were beginning to settle in, an urgent message arrived. One of his horses was struggling to give birth. Without a moment's hesitation, Zhou Yu rushed to his wife Xiao Cao, who was already by the horse's side assisting with the labor. But things weren't going smoothly. The foal was coming out breech, a dangerous complication. Zhuge Liang, ever calm and resourceful, stepped forward. He offered to help, explaining that he had once helped a cow deliver its calf. With determination, Zhuge Liang worked swiftly, using his experience and skill. After much effort, he successfully delivered the foal. Zhou Yu, overwhelmed with gratitude, named the newborn foal Meng Meng. Later that evening, Zhou Yu invited Lu Su and Zhuge Liang to dinner. As they gathered around the table, Lu Su attempted to steer the conversation toward the looming threat of Cao Cao's forces. But Zhou Yu, dismissive of the concern, waved off the discussion. Instead, he turned to Zhuge Liang and suggested they play the guqin, a traditional Chinese string instrument. The two of them played together, the music flowing through the room. As the melody filled the air, Xiao Cao, standing nearby, could hear the deeper message in the notes. Her husband longed for battle. It was clear he was ready to fight against Cao Cao. After dinner, Lu Su, frustrated by Zhou Yu's reluctance to engage in serious talks about the war, turned to Zhuge Liang. But Zhuge Liang, ever the optimist, reassured him. He was confident that Zhou Yu would eventually join the fight. The way he had played the guqin that evening spoke volumes. Zhou Yu's heart was already in the war, even if he hadn't yet fully admitted it. Meanwhile, Cao Cao sat in his chamber, staring intently at a painting of a woman. The woman, Xiao Cao, was renowned as the most beautiful in the Dongwu kingdom. Cao Cao reminisced about meeting her in his youth, a moment that had forever captured his heart. His true motive for attacking Dongwu, he revealed, was not just to expand his empire, but to possess Xiao Cao. With this desire burning within him, Cao Cao gave the order to move his forces toward the Dongwu kingdom. The river was soon filled with thousands of warships, while his ground troops marched relentlessly along the riverbanks, closing in on their target. In the Dongwu palace, Sun Quan sat in quiet contemplation, his gaze fixed on his family's sacred sword. The letter from Cao Cao demanding his surrender weighed heavily on him. Sun Quan feared he would fail those who depended on him, torn between the pressure of submission and the duty to protect his people. Just then, Sun Quan's sister, Sun Shangshang, entered, offering her support and encouraging her brother to act. Despite her words, Sun Quan's fear and hesitation remained. Soon Zhou Yu entered the room. Sun Shangshang handed the letter to him, and without hesitation, Zhou Yu tore it in half. He then suggested they go tiger hunting, a simple yet powerful act that seemed to shift the weight of the moment. The following day, Zhou Yu, Sun Quan, and Sun Shangshang ventured into the dense forest for a tiger hunt. As they moved through the trees, Zhou Yu spoke of Cao Cao, comparing him to a tiger, silent, patient, and deadly. Cao Cao was a ruthless predator, capable of striking down anyone in his path, even the emperor himself. Zhou Yu then revealed the plans he had quietly been preparing for the past 3 years. Despite Cao Cao's overwhelming 800,000 troops, many were former enemies who had surrendered, making them unreliable and lacking in loyalty. In contrast, the Dongwu army was fiercely loyal. With the right strategy and an alliance with Liu Bei, Zhou Yu was confident they could defeat Cao Cao. Suddenly, a tiger leaped from the shadows and attacked one of the soldiers. Without hesitation, Zhou Yu ordered Sun Quan to take the shot. It was a test of courage, forcing Sun Quan to face his fear. After a tense moment of struggle, Sun Quan steadied himself and with a single shot, killed the tiger. The hunt was over, but the decision that followed was not. Sun Quan, now resolute, declared his commitment to forming an alliance with Liu Bei to confront Cao Cao. He would not tolerate any opposition to this course. With unwavering determination, Sun Quan appointed Zhou Yu as the commander of the war and handed him the sacred sword, sealing the alliance that would shape the fate of the South. Later, Zhuge Liang invited Zhou Yu to meet with Liu Bei, where a crucial conversation took place. Liu Bei, eager to understand the scale of the upcoming battle, asked how many soldiers from the Dongwu kingdom would be joining the fight. To his shock, Zhou Yu only brought 30,000 troops. Panic rippled through Liu Bei's camp. 30,000 seemed woefully inadequate against the massive force of Cao Cao. Zhou Yu, undeterred, calmly picked up a single straw from the ground. Holding it up, he explained that a single straw can be easily broken, but a bundle of straws tied together is much harder to break. His words were simple, but the meaning was clear. If they united their forces, they could overcome Cao Cao's overwhelming numbers. As preparations for battle began, Sun Shangxiang, Sun Quan's sister, approached Zhuge Liang, Zhou Yu, and Lu Su. She was eager to fight alongside them, but was met with resistance from Lu Su, who insisted that she return home. He believed that the sight of Cao Cao's massive army would frighten her. Furious at his dismissal, Sun Shangxiang struck Lu Su's horse, knocking him unconscious. The others panicked, thinking the horse had died, but Sun Shangxiang swiftly revived it, proving that she was more than capable of joining the battle. Meanwhile, Cao Cao sat in his camp, seething with anger as he read a letter from Dongwu. It was blank, an insult, a challenge to war. Cao Cao's fury exploded. He ordered his men to kill the messenger who delivered the letter, sending a clear message of his own. He was certain Sun Quan had formed an alliance with Liu Bei and believed that Zhou Yu would be leading the battle against him. But despite the mounting threat, Cao Cao remained confident, sure that his forces would crush their enemies and emerge victorious. On the other hand, the alliance's camp buzzed with activity as Zhou Yu and Liu Bei watched the progress of their troops' training. General Zilong approached with a report, his voice filled with confidence. He and General Gan had successfully aligned their strategies for the upcoming battle, ensuring that the alliance's forces were ready for what lay ahead. Both sides, Cao Cao's and the alliance's, were finalizing their plans, preparing for the inevitable clash. Cao Cao, determined to strike swiftly, gave the order for his forces to move that very night. With thousands of warships in tow, he sent his main army along the land routes, planning to ambush the alliance's troops and catch them off guard. But Zhou Yu had anticipated this move. As the troops readied themselves, Zhuge Liang, deep in thought, observed a turtle moving slowly across the ground. His eyes sparkled with an idea. He turned to Zhou Yu, proposing the use of the Bagua formation, an ancient tactic designed to defend against a superior force. Though it hadn't been used in years, Zhuge Liang was confident that, at the right moment, it would be their greatest advantage. Meanwhile, Cao Cao's land forces, led by Generals Hu Jun and Wen Bei, began their march toward the alliance's position. Along the way, disaster struck. A soldier was shot by Sun Shangxiang and her forces, sending a shockwave of humiliation through Cao Cao's ranks. Enraged by the attack, Hu Jun disregarded Wen Bei's warnings and gave chase, his pride stung by the thought of being outwitted by a woman. He pressed forward, oblivious to the potential trap waiting ahead. Moments later, the chase was on as Sun Shangxiang led the enemy forces into a cloud of dust, kicked up by the alliance's troops. As the enemy advanced, they were caught off guard, showered with a barrage of arrows. The chaos left many of them wounded or dead, and the survivors walked straight into the trap. This was the Bagua formation in action. From a distance, Zhou Yu and Zhuge Liang watched as the enemy stumbled right into the well-laid ambush. Hu Jun, realizing the danger, urged his men to find an escape route, but it was too late. The alliance's forces closed in from all sides and the battle began in full force. Shortly after, General Gan, Guan Yu, Zilong, and Zhang Fei led the charge, cutting through the trapped enemy forces with brutal efficiency. The alliance's soldiers fought fiercely, overwhelming the enemy. Hu Jun, desperate to hold his ground, ordered his men to take cover behind their shields, but it was futile. Zhuge Liang, ever the strategist, quickly assessed the enemy's defenses and ordered a counterattack using sharp iron ropes. The enemy's shields and defenses were no match for the precision of the alliance's forces, and they crumbled under the pressure. In the heat of the battle, Zhou Yu rode into the fray, charging towards Zilong, who was locked in combat. Just as Zilong faced an incoming arrow from Wen Bei, Zhou Yu lunged forward, taking the shot meant for his ally. The arrow struck him, but the wound was not deep. With a swift motion, Zhou Yu yanked the arrow from his side and, filled with rage, cut Wen Bei down with a fatal strike. With the battle turning in their favor, Zhou Yu seized the enemy's flag, raising it high to rally his troops. The sight of the flag inspired a surge of energy in the alliance's soldiers, pushing them forward with renewed determination. Meanwhile, General Gan delivered a crushing blow to Hu Jun, forcing the enemy's forces to surrender. But Zhou Yu, ever the tactician, made a calculated decision to spare Hu Jun's life. He sent him back to Cao Cao, a message of humiliation and defeat that would sting far more than any victory. Despite the land victory, Zhou Yu knew the war was far from over. Cao Cao's warships, though, were still advancing. Meanwhile, the defeat of Hu Jun and Wen Bei sent shockwaves through Cao Cao's men, sowing panic among the ranks. But Cao Cao, ever composed, dismissed their fears. It was just a small setback, he assured them, and there was no need to panic. Yet he had underestimated his enemy once again. Zhou Yu had anticipated this move, and the tide was shifting in ways Cao Cao hadn't foreseen. Determined not to be caught off guard, Cao Cao set up camp across the river from the Chibi cliffs, where the alliance's forces were stationed. From a distance, Zhou Yu's eyes scanned the river, spotting the enemy's warships docked on the opposite shore. As the alliance strategized, Zhuge Liang keenly observed Cao Cao's movements. He predicted that after his loss on land, Cao Cao would likely change his approach, focusing on his warships for the next phase of attack. Zhou Yu, sensing the truth in Zhuge Liang's analysis, suspected that Cao Cao's land forces had only been a test. Now that Cao Cao understood the alliance's strength, the tables had shifted, but the alliance still had no clear picture of Cao Cao's true military power. Later that evening during dinner, Liu Bei spoke with Sun Quan, requesting refuge in the strategic city of Jingzhou, which lay within Dongwu's territory. Sun Quan agreed, but one of his ministers objected, aware of the city's importance and its strategic value. Just then, Sun Shang entered the room, and an idea struck Sun Quan. He suggested that Liu Bei, now a widower, marry his sister, Sun Shang. This would ensure that Liu Bei would have no hesitation in seeking Sun Quan's help when needed. Unexpectedly, Sun Shang approached Liu Bei and struck his pressure point, causing him to faint instantly. The room fell silent as she scolded her brother for proposing such a marriage. Sun Quan stood dumbfounded, unable to comprehend his sister's sudden and forceful reaction. Later, Zhuge Liang walked quietly behind Sun Shang, who was feeding pigeons in a secluded corner of the palace grounds. She turned to him with an apologetic expression, explaining her earlier outburst toward Liu Bei. Zhuge Liang, ever calm, reassured her that Liu Bei had forgiven the incident. Sun Shang then opened up about her frustration with being forced into an arranged marriage. She longed for freedom, like the pigeons she was feeding, tired of the constraints and expectations of palace life. Zhuge Liang, with a knowing smile, praised her for her talents and spirit, despite being a princess confined to the palace. Her strength and desire for independence were evident in her words and actions, making her more than just a royal figure. As they continued their conversation, Sun Shang pointed toward the distant camp of Cao Cao's forces. She shared that this was the very place where she and her brother had once hunted tigers, a memory of their past. But more importantly, she had an idea on how to defeat Cao Cao's army. The next day, Zhuge Liang remained stationed, observing Cao Cao's camp from a distance. Zhou Yu arrived to meet him, and in the quiet moments between them, Zhuge Liang confessed a troubling thought, a premonition that one day he and Zhou Yu might find themselves facing each other as enemies. Zhou Yu listened intently as Zhuge Liang spoke, his mind racing with the possibilities. Impressed by Zhuge Liang's insight into warfare, he praised his brilliance, grateful that such a mind was not on Cao Cao's side. The two strategists began to discuss the most likely moves Cao Cao would make. It was clear that Cao Cao, inexperienced in naval warfare, would depend heavily on General Kai, a seasoned commander with deep knowledge of the Yangtze River. To neutralize Cao Cao's forces, they would have to eliminate General Kai, no easy task, but one that could be accomplished if they played their cards right. The key, Zhuge Liang noted, lay in exploiting the mistrust within Cao Cao's ranks. Cao Cao's constant fear of betrayal was his greatest vulnerability, and this deep-rooted paranoia could be used to their advantage. With a plan taking shape, Zhuge Liang quickly set into motion their next move. He sent a pigeon carrying a message to Sun Shang, who had cleverly disguised herself as a spy within Cao Cao's camp. As the bird took flight, the threads of the alliance's strategy began to weave together, each move bringing them closer to victory. So the moral of the story is, don't let power-hungry people manipulate you into making bad decisions, especially when it leads to people throwing themselves into wells and generals overestimating their own strength. Always think twice before following the crowd, or you might end up fighting off tigers and being stuck in the middle of a war you didn't start.